Hey everyone! In today's video I'll be covering how to blend your graphite pencils in 5 different ways. First off, let's talk about how big of a difference blending can make in a drawing. Here I have a 5-paneled rectangle with one layer of graphite getting darker as each panel number gets higher. As you can see, there are many white specks from the paper that are able to be seen through the graphite no matter how dark the shade is. This is from the teeth of the paper not being filled with graphite. The way to eliminate all the white specks is to work the graphite all the way into the teeth. This is done with blending. Blending is an essential tool to many styles of drawing that could take a drawing like this into a gradient like this. On this side, there's a smooth transition between the shades with no white specks. This has been created by blending the first layers of graphite shown on the last page together and layering more graphite on top. The end result is much more smooth and satisfying to the eye. However, some people have trouble blending their pencils, which is why I've collected 5 different ways to blend graphite pencils. The first method is great for blending small areas. It's probably the method that I use the most often, and the one that I think is the easiest. A blending stump looks like this. They come in a ton of different sizes, and they're very cheap in all art stores. Many people also use tortillons, which are super similar to blending stumps. A tortillon is a rolled paper with only one side, while a blending stump is compressed paper that is double-sided. The two of them work exactly the same way, so it's a matter of preference for which one I'd recommend you to use. Personally, I like blending stumps more, but it's really just a matter of preference. When using a blending stump, make sure not to press too hard on the page and just move the stump in little small circular motions. This easily works the graphite into the teeth of the page and evenly distributes it throughout the area you're blending. Blending stumps will catch a considerable amount of graphite on the tip of them, so before you start blending a light area of graphite, make sure to clean the stump off on a piece of scrap paper. The tip will still appear to look dirty, but most of the graphite will rub off onto your scrap paper, so it's safe to go back in on those light areas. This is definitely my most recommended method, but don't worry if you don't own any of these blending stumps or tortillons. There's tons of different methods of blending that don't require you to go out and buy any new materials. The second method is the paintbrush method. Most people don't realize that in addition to using paintbrushes for paints and watercolors, they can also be used for graphite. This method will only work with a paintbrush that has flat, straight bristles, not one that fans out. The straight bristles are sturdy enough to carry the graphite around the area you're shading, and thin enough to work it into the page. It's quick and efficient, just like the blending stump method. But just like any method, make sure you're not pressing too hard into the page with your paintbrush. Be delicate, especially with this method. This paintbrush was a little big for this area of graphite, so just make sure that you pick a paintbrush that's the right size for the area you're working on. Otherwise, blending with the paintbrush can be very messy and it won't come out as neatly as you'd like. I don't really use this one that often, but it's still a good one to keep in mind, just in case I ever want to change it up a little bit. The cotton ball is a great tool for drawing and blending. These next 3 methods use materials that can be easily found around the house, so no one has to run to their local art store just to find ways to blend. I use this method all the time for blending large areas of graphite. It doesn't take very long, and the cotton balls are super smooth with large areas, while using something more like the blending stumps just takes a really long time and it leaves you with like this patchy look. Just be careful when using a cotton ball since they can pick up and carry a lot of the graphite into the lighter areas. But don't be afraid to turn around the cotton ball and use the other sides of it too. It might get your fingers a little messy, but it's much better than switching the cotton ball each time since it wastes a lot. Next is the Q-tip method. Q-tips are a great tool for blending since they don't have a really sharp, pointy tip, and they're a really soft material. I use Q-tips really often for blending very light areas of my drawings, where the blending stumps might carry the extra graphite onto. With a nice clean Q-tip, I don't have to worry about any extra graphite getting added on to what I'm working on. Another good thing about Q-tips is that they have 2 sides, so when one side gets too dirty, all you have to do is flip it over instead of reaching for another Q-tip. But just like all the other methods, this is done in little circular motions with light pressure on the page. This method is definitely one of my favorites as well. The final method is probably one of the most convenient ones. If you haven't been to your local art store recently, or you ran out of Q-tips and cotton balls, The paper towel method is never going to let you down. This is another technique that's good for the larger areas, just like the cotton ball. Even though this material is considerably larger than the other ones, the actual blending is done the exact same way, except this time you'll be wiping with little circular motions. Although this one's not my most recommended method, when all else fails, the paper towel will always get this job done. So there are my top 5 ways to blend pencils. Although I use graphite in this video, every method can also be used with charcoal and most other dry medias. I hope I could help you with your blending skills today. So thank you guys so much for watching. Happy blending, and I'll see you next time.